So, hello everyone, and welcome to Aim High Awesome Leaders. I'm very excited because today on the show, we are talking about strategy before pretty posts on social media. And there could be no more important topic today for emerging and established businesses in terms of taking that brand leadership. And most founders tend to think that visibility is kind of the same as traction on social media. However, what we'll talk about today will show that that is perhaps not the best point of view, right? And my guest today built a social media business while still in school. And she went on to work inside an agency and teams during the pandemic. And she now helps startups right across the UK, the US, and Canada to stop guessing and really start to grow their social media and to actually serve their business goals. By doing so, she's strategic, she's scrappy, and she totally understands what founders need before they hire someone to just do post for them. Gift Igbin is the founder of SocialGift. And today she's here to break down exactly what real social media support looks like for early stage founders and why so many brands waste time on platforms that don't really move the needle. So with that, let's dive in. Welcome, Gift. I'm super excited that you've joined today as a founder, as a social media strategist, with all of your great learnings. And, super excited to have you join. Yes. Would you like to add anything to that
Yeah,
introduction, first of all?
no. Yes. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me on, Camilla. It's a pleasure always to connect with more people and yeah, give that advice back to people who need it. So thank you so much for having me on, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Absolutely, Gift. And that I should also add, right, for our listeners, that more recently, so you were located in the US and Canada, and more recently, you are now based in the UK, right? And as
Yes.
part of that, you've been participating in a lot of enterprise and innovation events tied to Oxford Brookes University, right? And really understanding more about the local startup system as well. So, again, I think, what really sets you apart, Gift, is your approach, right? And the fact, looking at your social media, you don't just create content, you really understand how to set the right foundations for like a lasting social media presence. And with that being said, I would love to ask you, first of all, in terms of working inside an agency during COVID, and how did that shape what you went on to do next? And how did that environment kind of teach you what maybe many social media creators or businesses do not learn?
Yeah. So obviously, COVID was a very rough time for a lot of businesses. I think, if anything, that was a lot of the alarm bells that were ringing for businesses that hadn't made a move on social media or weren't prioritizing their online community as much as their own, because they were like, well, we get our customers by walk-in, we get our customers by, email, whatnot, or even that was really lacking a bit more before COVID. And I think COVID was the pinnacle of everyone being like, wow, if we aren't in front of our customers, how else do they find out about us? How do they know if we're open today? How do they know if we are, having masks on or masks off? Like, little things like this in communication were also starting to become something that people had to prioritize. And when I started, I was, like you said, working in an agency. Their business was doing pretty well because they were an e-com business, so they had set up a lot of their community and their customer base online. So it's very easy for them to easily go into their, I guess, digital presence even more, even stronger, but they already had a presence. And we were working with PR to make sure they were still getting the visibility they needed, because everyone was consuming more information, more media, reading more articles, reading more, blogs. So making sure to have that foundation of just having the right platforms was so important. But that's where I started with social media. And obviously, as it went on during the agency, I developed love for connecting with the client themselves. And so that's why obviously I went solo later on so that I can do that one on one with the founder, with the people who are making this dream or your idea come true. So yeah,
Yes. Oh my goodness. So good. So thank you so much, Gift, for sharing on that. And what, like, if you were to transparently reflect back on that time, and I appreciate it was a few years ago now, but
yeah.
what mistake do you think that for you, as you did get started, that you kind of repeated for long enough to kind of almost set that strategic goal instead of reactive approach to social media that many people are taking around that?
Yeah, I think the main thing was feeling like you had to be on every platform. When I started getting my own clients and they asked me, "Oh, I think we should be on TikTok," and going, "Yeah, you know what? We could be on TikTok." Because making a TikTok account takes 5 minutes. Anybody can be on TikTok. The question is, should we be on TikTok? Or mistakes like, should we hop on that trend? Because just because it's trending, will your audience in 6 months from now still remember your brand and your brand values based on that post? Did that bring people to connect to their brand, or was it just another they're hopping on the trend? So making sure that everything you're hopping on, all your communication is diversified was a big thing that, time and time again, it's fine to do the boring basics, but now with AI, with more content creators, with more influencers, with more agencies, with more people that can make amazing work, you have to also be creative and really have that authenticity in your business. Whereas before, I think over the last couple of years, this has obviously changed. But when I started, it wasn't that hard to make an audience and to make people care because lots of people were consuming. Now we do have a lot of creators and consumers, so it's making sure you don't look like every creator and you don't look like every consumer either, and talking to your audience, like not just talking to the greater social media public. And I think once you start niching down, understanding who you're talking to, understanding who you're trying to target, because obviously that can be different on social media to, people in your in-person events or whatnot. That was, I think, a mistake. Like, you know what? We need to start focusing on that, instead of just hopping on to hop on. Like sometimes you don't have to hop on every train. Like there will be a train for you, and it's just making sure to know which one to, hop on. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense, really, Give, because when we think about it, right, like even to hop on to one train, in terms of the commitment and
Mhm.
the effort that might be needed, it takes
Yeah.
that sustained, you've got to have that as well. So I completely appreciate what you're saying, which is one, businesses cannot, literally cannot, typically in terms of resource, just be part of every bandwagon. And so, yeah, they have to choose finally. And yeah, really like how you described, right, that they need to stand out today, where there are more creators entering the space. And
Mhm.
that shouldn't deter businesses. But at the same time, the content standard, right, has maybe the bar has gone up a little bit higher. And yeah, and
Definitely.
that's
And I
that's
think
that's something.
Yeah.
Mm,
And definitely, I think agencies also feel this pressure as well, like as encouragement to
mhm,
businesses, whether you're doing your marketing yourself, which businesses can do when they're starting, to, then finally being able to outsource it and get somebody a bit more expert and more, fond on the, industry on it. Either way, the bar has raised for everybody. Agencies also didn't have to do influencer marketing before. They didn't have to know what PR was. That was its own thing. We were our own section. Social media wasn't part of every agency. It was marketing. Now you have just social media agencies. Now you have just content agencies. Now you have just graphic design. Like there's always these niches, but now there's more people entering the space that are so niched in an area that the bar has risen.
mhm,
And that
mhm,
pressure is not just felt from people who are consuming it and people who are joining now because they're like, "Oh, I'm
mhm,
late to the game." It's that bar has been
mhm,
increasing, and agencies or people who've started at the beginning have had to accustom to that, and if they haven't, they've had to pivot into something else. And that's why you see people, maybe changing their business up and maybe not offering the same services. And I can attest to that as well. Some things are just not needed now, as they were before.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Gift, because yeah, when we think about it, right, these early stage businesses and startups typically don't have all the resources as well. So as it does get more specialist, it's like what is going to be the essential keystone for your agency, as opposed to like you described, right? You can't have necessarily every single one. So yeah, that's fascinating. And I guess on that topic, what do you think if there was one thing which might have changed in your thinking, right? Since you started working with clients across markets, like have you
Yeah.
noticed any differences, Gift, in terms of the business mindset or values or anything?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think every country I've ever had clients in, it has been drastically different. For a lot of things, I think from even the starting phases of who is even looking for marketing help has been a learning curve for me. I think in the UK, it's known that marketing is great, and there are people who work in the industry and all that things. But apart from when it comes to startups, I think they are a bit more um, that's a bit more on the burner for a lot of people. Whereas, I used to I had a lot of content creator in, clients from the US, and their only reason of bringing me on is to better their content and learn more and understand the world. So I think people over there were a bit more, I guess, free with their like spending and their investing and where they want to put that. And marketing was always like one that I wouldn't have to sell them on that. Whereas here it is still we are still explaining a little bit of why it's important and why you should do it, why you should be on it. I think some people are still in that phase of it's okay, like my business has been okay without it for a long time. And again, that doesn't mean you have to be on every social media. Some businesses just need an email list. That's still marketing and it's still digital, right? So I think people are still learning what that looks like for everything, especially after COVID. But I think that from every country as well, it comes with their own aesthetic to things. It comes with their own knowledge, and their own bar as well. And when I went to Australia this summer and shot content, all that content was bright and vivid and very I guess, very inclusive of like the space, and it took a lot of the culture, I guess, of Australia in the photos. Whereas like here, it's more of you are making that world. Whereas Australia has the palm trees, it has the beaches, right? So you can just go out and shoot your own content. Whereas here, a lot of things you have to make or rent a studio. So even little things like that for what you need for your brand can be a bit different. So yeah, definitely huge differences in certain things, but I guess in overall sense, the bar has
Hmm.
raised for everyone. I think social media is a global thing anyway, so I can see
Yeah.
what creator is doing in Australia. So if I want to, use a few of those tips in my UK business, I could, and that's a amazing thing about that as well. We all collaborate on these ideas together. But yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. And so I love that. And so, Gift, in terms of coming back to the fact, and many listeners for this will be based in the UK, right, and from the UK market. So, with regards to, perhaps that education piece, like where many people think that social media, consulting just means posting, why do you think that it is a little bit dangerous for those startups to think like that? And maybe, yeah, what do you do or know that when a founder needs strategy, um, yeah, how might you help them with that?
Yeah, so I think it's a dangerous place to be in terms of it caps your growth. I think social media is a vessel for growth. If you are in a place where you want to grow your business, if you want to get more visibility, whatever it may be, like social media can be a tool you can use, just like AI can be a tool, just like, your connections, your network, all these little things can be tools. Buying a coaching program to better yourself as a founder, that is a tool that you now have to then better and grow your business, right? So social media and marketing is just another tool in the toolbox. I think it's really scary to not prioritize or leave that tool in the toolbox when you have the ability to do it, even if it's you as a founder on a small scale. Because again, we are getting to the time where social media, when I was growing up, was still very new, and emails were still where everything was at, and we still had, the big thick catalogs. Like, it wasn't online shopping and scrolling for hours, right? So like, and that's like, and still in my time. So social media is relatively new to the power is now. However, we are in a prime space of, if you're part of it now and you're learning how it works, then your business in the future is only going to be thanking you for it. Because again, when I started, it was 5 years ago, and just in 5 years, or 6 years this year, there's been incredible changes in like the content game. And the content I posted when I started, if I made my account and reposted the same videos, they would not do well. I would not have a community. They did amazing for me before. I grew a great community, but it would not work now. So just that knowledge saves me time from not having to make those videos, right? And now for my clients, I won't make those videos and I won't use that content style. However, without that knowledge of starting then, I wouldn't know that now. So it's more of a cap to growth. It's like, you have the ability. Social media is free. I
Mm,
prioritize growth on social media anyway, so I know that you can do a lot by yourself. So it's more of the danger of not growing. But again, some companies are okay with not picking that tool until they feel like they really need it. But again, in that time, you can make 100 bad videos that don't go well, so
mm,
you can make the 101 the best
mm,
one. It just
yeah.
depends when you want to making that 100, right? So the longer you take, the longer you got to go. And especially if you're doing it solo or you're not getting anybody else to help, it's just harder to get research. So that would be the biggest thing for that. And I guess tips for, I guess, practical way of getting started is getting started,
Yeah. Yeah.
making understanding what platform you need to be on, um, doing research about where you want to go, what does your community look like. I think the biggest thing I told a lot of my clients that really helped change the narrative was, you have to act like you already have the community you want. So if you are making, I don't know, if you have a coaching business, a lot of people do that as well on the side, or consultancy, and your goal is to have a foster community of 10,000 people on your Instagram that are engaging, they're DMing you, they're investing in your courses or your ebooks or booking you for your one-on-ones, you have that engagement. You need to be making content for those 10,000 people from day one, not when you see the numbers. That's the problem.
Yeah.
People make
Yeah.
content what they have now, but
Yes.
nobody wants to be where they are now, right? So you need to
Yeah.
make it for
Yeah.
10,000 followers, right? You don't wait for them
Yeah.
to show up. They'll come,
Mm,
and that's how you grow an audience. I think reframing the way you think about that is so important. And once you start seeing it that way, now you don't feel like you're making that post or that video and no one's seeing it. No, no, no. I'm putting one more ballot into the vote for the
mm,
right person to see it, because the value you already have is in you, right? Nobody else is
yeah.
you. Nobody else is your brand. And that is the only thing you need to be successful on social media. Be different. And every single
Amazing.
person is. So I think that's my
Yeah.
best practical advice of just starting, is reframing mindset both ways.
Yeah, they need
Exactly.
something to
Yeah.
look at, and,
Yeah, so I think, like I was saying to you in our like chat as well before the podcast, I am an extension of the business owner. I think, unlike agencies that it's taking on a project and adding on, taking on a project and adding on, I'm more of, well, here's your problem, here's your gap, and if you had a hand to hold one more plate, how far could you reach? Like, what else could you hold? And so what else could grow the business, right? So I work with founders of all stages. I think some people have no idea about social media, and then our whole package, I'm teaching them as I go, and I'm making sure they're educated on what's going on, because I don't want my clients to just think I'm posting, because that is not just what social media is. There is so much more that goes into that as well, because it is just a spectrum of marketing, and marketing is so important because that's why we buy everything we have, right? So even to the things on the shelves. So making sure they understand how they're presented on their digital storefront is really important. And then I also have clients who just literally don't have the time to focus, and they know the importance as well. So then they're outsourcing me to help with everything in between. So shooting the content, strategizing, coming up with everything, and literally fully managing their accounts. And I'm just an extension of that, right? Extension of what they would do if they could do it all by themselves. But we can't do it all by ourselves. And if a founder is, you know, blessed enough and in a stage where they're able to not have time, that is actually a blessing, because that means we can invest into getting that off your plate fully. But I
Mm.
think advice practically for that founder in the gap where they are active, like they are posting a few times, but it is hard to stay consistent, is making sure you have a plan. It's better to have a plan that's consistent, that's less quantity than maybe what you would want, than to be inconsistent, but then you're posting 10 videos today and then 0 for the next month. And that was really affecting one of my long-term clients. They would post a lot because they'd have somebody that on the staff that could do the social media, and then they got busy with actual work for them in their role because they're not marketing.
Yes.
And then,
Yeah.
then the social media doesn't get heard from. The DMs are not getting replied to. Comments are not, being replied to. People don't leave comments anymore because they don't expect you to reply. So that sets a tone as well, right? So for people who cannot reach your business physically, or they want to still vet you out, like you said, they're going to your social media. They're seeing that. Even to like Google reviews. Does anybody reply
Mm.
to your Google reviews? Or do you leave your negative reviews completely blank? That says
Mhm.
a lot about your business, right? These are
Yeah.
all little things
Yeah.
that like you can do real quick, on your next commute, or, when you're having coffee sometime. But I think people forget that. So it's mostly, if it's hard being consistent, is coming up with a plan, Mondays, I check all my reviews. I check every email. I check all the comments. I check all the community stuff, right? Monday can be your community day, whereas
Yes.
Friday can be your strategizing day. That's 2 days. And if you set 1 hour of each day to do that, you'd have traction, because social media rewards those who are social. It doesn't
Mm.
reward those that just there, right? Everyone
Yeah.
can exist on social media, but social media apps want you to be active, and they want you to, engage with other people. So if you literally take time to just engage with other people and then post maybe 1 time a week instead, you'll get
Mm.
more results from posting 5 times a week and then not touching your page for another like 3 weeks, because that's what happened, because life will always happen. And if you're posting once a week, that's 4 times a month. It takes you
Yeah.
about like an hour to make a post, or to make those 4 posts. That's 1 month's worth of content. If that one post is valuable, it can get shared. It can be saved. It can be, shared around. You can create a community off that one post. You can share it on different platforms, right? You've now already made this evergreen content. And that's a great thing with social media. It doesn't expire. So
Yeah.
you can make the content now, and then, in a couple of weeks, you're like, wow, like my Instagram's really doing well and my TikTok's really doing well. And you're wondering, but I haven't posted anything crazy. And it's because the post that you posted 3 weeks ago all of a sudden is getting a lot of traction, right? So it's more of making sure there's a plan that you can follow that's actually realistic, even though it sounds like maybe not what you wanted, because you're like, oh, everyone's posting, 5 times a week. They have the blessing and the ability to do that. If you don't feel bad because you don't have that same, allowance of time. So
Yeah.
what can you do that resembles that? Commitment
Mhm.
and consistency.
Mm.
That's the only
Mm.
difference. So
Yeah.
I think people focus too much about the output and the quantity of it, but not the quality and the consistency of it. So again, it's all about making sure you prioritize the right part of social media to get the
Yeah.
right results. Oh, definitely. I think, I think the founder who outsources everything and does remain detached is actually the most dangerous than the one that doesn't start at all, because now you've outsourced so many parts of a creative process that has different, like everybody has their own style to things. Everybody has their own like way of thinking, their own way of strategizing, which is beautiful. But if you have different people giving their 2 cents about something that should be a united thing and cohesive, then your Instagram looks one way, your TikTok looks another, your email list doesn't really exist. Your blog sounds like somebody else, right? Your reviews sound like you. So it's like now you have 5 different characters. And for a brand to be strong, you have to have one singular, cohesive, like I guess, storefront view character stereotype that people could be like, okay, well, that's what the brand is. If I told somebody, Boots, for example, and I was like, "What's it like?" And what, like, if you had to use one word to describe Boots, people could probably be able to use like convenience, always there, right? Has everything, They so if you started hearing people saying, "Oh, it's great for food and it's great for this," like people would be like, "Well." That's not really what the brand's known for, right? So if their TikTok's all about their food section and their Instagram's all about their, medical pharmacy area, that's two different things. So it has to be cohesive. And I think that the founder that is outsourcing things needs to slow down and say, wait, am I investing in the wrong thing? Because I could sit here and tell you all day, invest in the right thing, but it's about making the right investments because obviously I've also had a lot of clients that have been burnt by, maybe their social media managers or people who have said they can help them with marketing, but yet they've dropped out the game or they've not been consistent, right? So make sure you vet the
Right.
people that you're hiring is so important.
Mhm.
You have to make sure you get somebody passionate about it. Everyone can do social media is like I think something people forget. Like everyone can do social media, especially now you can do social media. It's the difference is who can use social media to extend your brand and also have the passion for social media that they are thinking about your brand like it's their baby. They're taking that responsibility
Yeah.
upon themselves and they don't see
Mhm.
it as just a transaction and another project to do, right? And I think
Yes.
that's why I went solo, and that's why I wanted to help those in between founders who were like, I know I need social media, but I need the help. And that's where I like to stay. And that's because I like to hear about their story. I want to understand where you came from. I want to understand, what your struggles were at the beginning and what your biggest achievements are. Because when I make content, my creativity will be fueled off your passion. And now we're both passionate about this thing, right? So when I do the post, we sound the same. We're speaking the same language. However, a lot of people do not test to see if somebody else they're investing in learns their language and their tone of voice and their brand's mission, their brand's tone of voice. So that can cause a lot of issues when you're making posts because things look different. Or maybe they have one person for video, one person for photos, but they don't communicate. That's another mistake I've seen. Like they'll delegate and they'll hire these people, great, but they don't talk to each other because you've hired them separately. So making sure they're talking together, you're doing the meetings, you're facilitating a cohesive plan together is so important. So just making sure your knowledge of that is really on par to avoid, bad investments and a waste of time, obviously. But yeah,
Right. And again, yeah,
yeah,
for a big, yeah, really
exactly.
interesting, explain that, right? And,
Yeah, I think platform choice is it's honestly something I wouldn't stress too much over if you're starting because again, like you are starting, you're learning, and as marketing strategies change, businesses change as well. So your business might have done so well on TikTok 5 years ago, but maybe you're looking at it now and you're like, well, we've diversified. We actually don't help that kind of group anymore. So now that your TikTok presence maybe wouldn't be the best or it wouldn't be necessary to start with, right? So it's kind of like assessing where you need to be first. Once you've assessed that, like you can start moving forward and trying it out. And it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to just, not fully, I guess find it successful. So that's okay as well for people who are like ground starting and they're doing it themselves. Like I'm talking to the founder who's doing it all solo, start and then, learn as you go is what I would say. However, I think it is really important that if you are able to invest time and invest expertise in somebody who is managing your socials, when it comes to that TikTok, Instagram debate, it's more of a question of what you can handle. If you are outsourcing somebody who's fully managing your social media, like full service, then they can do both. Of course, why not? More visibility, more chances to get the right people, right? If that they can handle both because they're doing full service and they should be able to because that is the bar of lots of social media managers today. But also equally, if you are, a service-based provider you're an author and you are the brand, right? But if you can't make videos, or you don't have time to have an 8 hour, not 8 hour maybe, but a couple hours of a shoot day or a content day to film all these videos so then your social media manager can go edit them, then I wouldn't say go on TikTok, for example, right? But also Instagram's trying to compete with TikTok. So their priority of video content from like before has gone so much higher, right? Because when TikTok came back again, it used to be a lip syncing app back in the day. So I was on TikTok before it was called TikTok, and it's completely revolutionized. It's not the same as it was. But again, I couldn't be posting the content that I did then now. Same thing with, I think, founders getting started as well. So it's just really important to understand the value, one, of where you're going and what you can handle, because knowing before I could make little short videos and lip sync was easy. I could do that. I could do maybe 15 and like 20 minutes, right? But now we need to edit content. We have to cut things. We need to make sure it looks good and clean and proper. And you want to present yourself the best, because that is where the bar is now. So if you can't commit to that, or giving the videos to the person who can edit them, for like a brand like where you are the brand, it is harder. So I think more of the debate is, where can you sustain? And it's better to sustain one platform really, really well than to have two that are not so well, because again, your community will feel that. And I think especially on TikTok, it is very community vibe. You can really build that like close knit community on TikTok, whereas Instagram is kind of more like a show off the highlight reel, show us all the great things. So you can be raw and real, and that's why you see founders going, oh, I quit my 9 to 5 job making this much money and I'm building a random business. And those do so good on TikTok because people relate to that, right? And TikTok still has that genuine authenticity to it. So that's what I would say. It's more of a debate on what they can handle, because some companies, they don't have time to get their staff to make videos, right? So does that mean you're
Yeah.
going to have to hire a content creator? Or does that mean that you maybe stick to a non-video platform and go on Pinterest or discover LinkedIn or whatever it is for your niche, obviously? So it does depend on the company, the
Mm,
niche, what you're doing, what your
mm.
long-term goals are. But if you can do both, great. But it's better to focus on shooting one basket than to try and, shoot you for two baskets and you're trying to figure out where you're aiming. I think that would be the best analogy for it, because either one would be great if you can grow on both. Oh, good one. Social media only works when you're cohesive and authentic. That's the biggest thing, I think, because cohesive, making sure you look the same on every platform, making sure you speak the same, making sure your reviews look the same and they sound the same, and there's transparency. And that follows on to the authentic, because we are in a stage of people know what is real and what's not, and everyone wants real. We're really trying to keep the human in social media. So if your business looks not human, feels not human, sounds not human, it's not going to speak to your audience. And that is what social media needs. Social media literally is a social platform. You have to be social. To be social, just like you would with your friends or your colleagues, you have to be yourself. So I think the best advice would be, you wouldn't walk into a room and start saying, I'm honored to announce that I have a new job role, because
Yeah.
that's not how you speak,
Yeah.
right? That's not how you speak.
Yeah.
But if I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, guys, I got a new job,
Yeah.
that's authentic. Now we're having a
Yeah.
human interaction. I think exactly the same on social media. You cannot have social
Yeah.
media without that authenticity.
You shattered the
Yeah.
trust.
So if LinkedIn is the only platform, then definitely invest all your content and all the things that you're making, all your verbiage, I guess, just invest into there if that's your only thing. However, if it's an addition, then I think it's a great place to be a bit more serious, a bit more, I guess, wear the suits, I guess, and maybe keep the sweatsuits for like platforms like TikTok, because that is completely different vibe, right? However, if your brand is more laid back, you should still reflect that on LinkedIn. I don't think you need to, I guess, be part of the culture too much of the app. Like if the culture of the app, like LinkedIn, is to be very professional and proper, but you are not a professional and proper brand, why are you speaking like that, right? So making sure that authenticity still is on that platform, especially LinkedIn, because it can be a very hard platform. And a lot of people make jokes about how people make posts about the most randomest things and how
Yeah.
they announce. It's like, what? Like, you'd never say that
Yeah.
in real life. It sounds so
Yeah.
weird, right? You sound so robotic. So,
Yeah.
and people are leaving comments but using ChatGPT, and it's like, but that's the part where you can interact as a human, and you are literally taking the human out of it. So I think when it comes to LinkedIn, I do love LinkedIn. I think more people are prioritizing it. I think LinkedIn is also seeing how TikTok is going and how video and YouTube, how it's not stopped and it's just kept going, and realize short form content is still growing market. So obviously now they have short form content video on LinkedIn, and they, have like their little, you can have your own little community. They have like connections and following. So you can have a large following, but only a close number of connections. So they've really separated things. So it feels more social media and less more, I guess, big work professional platform. So it also it really depends on the niche. But I think if you are able to have a bit more of your updates on LinkedIn. Maybe if you're a startup and post like you're hiring and you post like who you've hired and where they've come from, why you're excited for them to be part of the team. Those things still belong on Instagram. But if you are doing it just on LinkedIn, then that is a great platform to really prioritize making your brand its own person. And I think LinkedIn's really good at that because you can make your own page and post from that page and have your own separate one as the founder. So I think utilizing all of LinkedIn's um, engagement strategies, even boosting, you can do that on there now. So there's so many things that you can do that you were only able to do on TikTok or Instagram or Meta Business Suite, but now you can take that to LinkedIn as well. And there's so many automations as well, which I should have mentioned as well. There's so many ways to automate it, and apps are hearing you, they are listening, they know that you guys want automation. So now you can schedule your LinkedIn post. I scheduled on months of LinkedIn posts all in one evening. I forgot about it
Amazing.
posting, and then I post this, and then I just engage, right? So there's so many ways to just take out that strenuous 15 minutes of putting everything together, that then gives you a consistent brand that is genuine and speaks like you. Yeah, so um, I think
Gift? Can you?
when it comes,
Oh
I
yeah.
guess you're
Mhm.
mostly talk about like content and strategically planning, correct? Just to clarify. Yeah,
Businesses who that they have
yeah,
created
yeah.
and it's just
I
sitting
I
there. Um,
Yes, for sure. I think that when it comes to repurposing content, I'm a huge fan of that. I think obviously making sure that you repurpose content the right way for the right platform is the most important. So obviously reposting TikToks on Reels and making sure you don't have the TikTok watermark is really important. So there are little nuances that might have to change from platform to platform. However, repurposing content in the best ways, there's a little chart that you can find online, but it's just like I think it's a repurposed chart, and I think I'm not sure what marketer made it, but it was going around a lot when I started, and it essentially had shoot a long form video, and then underneath it had like all the things it could divide into, right? So you could make that long form video, then a YouTube video, then you can make a YouTube short. That YouTube short could be an Instagram video. The Instagram video could be a TikTok with a trending sound. Then you can make a carousel on TikTok because now you can do that. You can post it as a story as well. Then you could post that story on Instagram. So there's so many ways to repurpose content. One idea could be used so many times. It's also evergreen. So if there's a content idea that worked really well 3 weeks ago, bring it back to get that engagement. Once you get that one good post, it's about copying and pasting what made it so great, right? Was it because you gave so much value, or was it because you were so candid? Was it because you started with your face first, or is it because it was really like cut really nicely and had a bunch of effects to keep people engaged? Making sure you analyze your content is so important. And obviously that's what marketers do all the time. Like, we analyze content and different practices, different strategies, and see what works. Just like a scientist would, I guess, in a lab. So you can do that on a smaller scale by just going into your analytics and seeing what the most liked post is, and then maybe making a post like that, making a part two, maybe making a series. That idea now has been repurposed. So not only can you repurpose content as a
Amazing.
brand that maybe doesn't have the
Okay.
time, but you can also
Such a
repurpose
good,
your
yeah, such
ideas
great
and
advice
posts
there, Gift.
into different
And
things, or just create a more longer post or a
it's,
longer story
yeah,
for it if somebody really
I
enjoys
think we're
it.
slightly
And I think
losing
that's
the
the best way
sound.
to repurpose the content. Oh, sorry. Hello. Oh,
So, Gift, it has been such a pleasure to have you join and share so many amazing strategies, so many ways that founders can improve their social media, can outsource with confidence, can take new steps, right? If there was one other key piece of advice that you would share as a takeaway, please do share and let our listeners know. And also do let our listeners know how they can get in touch with you as well.
yes. I think my biggest takeaway is that, again, there is no issue with putting marketing on more of a brainstorm board instead of a act now board. I think social media is evergreen, so it's about whenever you make that first choice and first move that you are planning, you're strategizing, and you're making the best, like, I guess, commitment to you. So you're making sure you're consistent, whether it's outsourcing that consistency or doing it yourself. I think social media can also be really scary for people who have no idea what's going on. And there is so much out there to help you learn. And so many people, like other creators like me, that also spread a lot of the information as well. So I think making sure you're following these people and engaging with them and making sure you're taking up all this free knowledge is going to be really helpful for getting away from that fear of social media and seeing it more as a challenge in a good way. So that's the biggest thing, and making sure you're showing up as yourself wherever that is, however that is, and not having to confine to the culture of social media. If that's not how you believe in and that's not how you are, and if your friends can identify you, if that was you speaking, then maybe you're not showing up as 100% yourself. So we just want to make sure that that is authentic, because there's one of one. So one of you, one of your brand, one of your company. So we won't have another founder like you, and that is your superpower. So that would be the biggest thing that to note. And people can find me on LinkedIn. And my username is Gift Igbin, GIFTIGBIN, and on TikTok as well. My handle is SocialGiftI or SocialGift. I have two accounts, so feel free to connect with me on either one. And there's a lot of content on my TikTok account there as well, of content creation tools, things you can use as well, that I'm bringing more on LinkedIn as well. So for all my different people, I'm making it more inclusive. And then obviously Instagram, Social Gift I as well. But yeah, I'm always here to help as well, and connect. So if there is a founder listening that's a bit scared of going on social media and just needs a bit of guidance, or just needs to ask, hey, I'm about to hire this person, do I need them? My inbox is always welcome for that. I think I understand the pain of making a business is feeling so out of your depth. It's already so scary to make a business and jump in and invest all your time and energy and money into a business. So if I can be any help, then feel free to connect with me, and I can always help when I can.
Well, thank you so much again, Gift. And everyone, make sure that you give Gift a follow right across LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. Make sure you check out her social media content. And I'll put that in the show notes as well, right? And yes, I hope to those listening, right, to those who want to take more leadership in their content, who want to show up authentically, who want to, you know, have their brand um, perform, but at the same time to actually become, right? I think Gift shared a number of times today how there is this whole holistic aspect to your social media today as a business, right? Which is so crucial as well, and that authentic piece as well. So I hope this has given everyone the courage, right, to create some content, to create new content. I know it's inspired me. And yeah, I just want to really commend Gift for her passion for this, and also for her education and how much she is doing to help others and businesses to really step up in this area. So it is a scary world, as Gift said, but yeah, with this being a leadership podcast. I want to, encourage everyone to, as gifted earlier, right, take that at least first step, consider some of the tips Gift has shared. Check out the show notes about how you can connect with her. And I want to thank everyone for listening today. I want to encourage you to subscribe to the show, of course, and be back next time for the next amazing episode of Aim High, Awesome Leaders. So thanks once again to Gift, and see you on Aim High, Awesome Leaders next time. Thanks, everyone.